The room went silent in a way that felt dangerous, like the pause before a storm breaks glass. Screens still glowed with red numbers, executives still held their breath, but the CEO had frozen mid-step, eyes locked on a man no one had bothered to notice 10 minutes earlier. A single father, sleeves rolled, exhaustion carved into his face, had just unraveled $100 million disaster in minutes, and the truth of it hit harder than the loss ever did. Before the story pulls you deeper, take a moment. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, in quiet people changing their fate when the world least expects it, please like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps stories like this alive. Ethan Cole had not planned to save a corporation that morning. He had planned to drop his 7-year-old daughter at school, make sure her shoelaces were tied just right, kiss her forehead twice because once was never enough, and then hurry to a job that barely noticed him. His life was measured in small victories now, packed lunches, unpaid overtime, nights where grief didn't knock too loudly. 2 years earlier, he had buried his wife and with her the version of himself who dreamed loudly. What remained was a man who survived quietly. The skyscraper lobby swallowed him as it did every day, all glass and steel and people who walked like they owned the air. Ethan was a systems analyst on a temporary contract, the kind of role that kept you invisible. He fixed what others broke and never signed his name. His badge didn't open executive floors. His opinion wasn't requested. Still, he listened. He always listened, because listening had once saved his daughter when she was an infant and the doctor had almost missed a faint irregularity in her breathing. Listening had become his religion. That morning, the building felt wrong. Whispers traveled faster than elevators. A crisis was unfolding somewhere above, something about a trading algorithm misfiring, hemorrhaging money at a pace that made accountants pale. $100 million, possibly more, bleeding out minute by minute. People ran past Ethan without seeing him, eyes glued to phones, hands shaking. He reached his desk and began his work, but the numbers on a side monitor caught his attention. They pulsed with a rhythm that didn't make sense. Ethan leaned closer. He saw patterns where panic saw noise. He had built similar systems years ago, back when he still believed in long careers and longer tomorrows. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, hesitation heavy. It wasn't his job. It wasn't his place. He thought of his daughter's drawing taped inside his locker, a crooked house with 2 stick figures and a sun that smiled too wide. He thought of how she trusted him to fix things. He ran the simulation anyway. What he found made his stomach drop. A cascading feedback loop, triggered by a rare market condition, amplified by a rushed update pushed the night before. It wasn't a hacker or bad data. It was an assumption no one had questioned because no one had time. Ethan wrote a patch in minutes, hands steady despite the weight of what he was doing. He sent a single email to an address he wasn't sure he was allowed to use, attaching his findings and a fix. Then he waited, heart pounding, certain he would be ignored. Above him, the executive floor was chaos. The CEO, a man celebrated for decisiveness, stood watching his empire wobble. Advisors shouted options that sounded like surrender. Lawyers whispered words that tasted like blood. When Ethan's message appeared, it almost vanished under the flood of alerts. Almost. Something about the clarity of it, the absence of fear, made someone forward it. Then someone else. Until it landed where it mattered. They implemented the patch. The bleeding slowed. Then it stopped. When the numbers stabilized, disbelief washed through the room. The CEO demanded to know who had sent the solution. Minutes later, Ethan was escorted upstairs, his tie crooked, his mind racing through every mistake he might have made. He stepped into a room that smelled like money and tension, and for the first time in years, he felt small again. The CEO stared at him as if looking at a ghost. Not because Ethan was extraordinary in appearance, but because he was ordinary in a way the room had forgotten. A tired father. A quiet worker. A man who had saved them without asking for permission. The CEO froze, not in anger, but in the sudden recognition of failure. Failure to see. Failure to listen. Failure to value the people holding the building up from the inside. In that moment, Ethan wasn't thinking about promotions or praise. He was thinking about being home in time to help with homework. He was thinking about how fear had nearly kept him silent. He explained what he had seen, how the fix worked, and why it mattered to slow down before scaling systems that moved faster than human judgment. His voice didn't shake. It surprised him too. The days that followed changed the building. Ethan's contract became permanent. Then it became something more. But the true shift was quieter. Meetings opened with listening. Junior analysts were asked questions. A childcare room appeared on the third floor, sunlight pouring in where storage boxes used to be. The CEO sent a message company-wide acknowledging the man who reminded them that brilliance often sits in the back row, waiting to be trusted. At home, Ethan's daughter noticed the difference first. He laughed more easily. He slept without flinching. He framed her newest drawing and placed it on his desk where everyone could see. She asked him why he smiled when he worked now. He told her because sometimes, fixing one thing fixes many. If this story is touching something in you, pause for a moment and let it. And just before the ending, please write a comment sharing what part of this story stayed with you the most. Your words matter more than you think. On a rainy evening months later, Ethan stood in the lobby again, watching reflections ripple across the marble floor. The building no longer felt like it would swallow him. It felt like a place where people could be seen. He checked his phone and smiled at a photo sent from school, a crooked house, 2 stick figures, and a sun that smiled too wide. This time, there were 3 figures. If this story moved your heart, if it reminded you that quiet strength can change the world, please like, comment, and share this video. Your engagement tells us these stories matter, and together, we keep kindness visible.